Hey there, how you doing? It's Chris, your friendly neighborhood internet Sherpa, back again with another one of those tips on how to bring bodies through the door, put cheeks in the seats, and of course, build your list. Today, I want to talk a little lead generation, but I want to hit it from a slightly different angle and squeeze in a little baseball. Not a natural pairing, I admit, but stick with me because I tend to have a slightly different way of looking at things, and I think I can make fetch happen. And at the very least, it won't be boring. So, let's start with lead generation. This, if you ask me, is the fun stuff. It's the things you do to get in front of all those anonymous folks out there who need what you do so you can bring bodies through the door and put cheeks in the seats. And some folks are naturals at this stuff. For everyone else, lead generation is a learned skill. And it's kind of important if you're thinking about trying to build and maintain a clientele. When you threw up that open for business sign for the very first time, chances are you were a little light in the finding new customers department. And I'd be willing to bet a part of the baby's college fund that when you first got started, most of your focus was all about getting to the first sale and maybe the sale after that. And I don't blame you. I mean, after all, a little cash flow comes in handy when you're trying to pay rent and keep the lights on. Now, don't ask me why, but it occurred to me that that's probably the same mindset that pro baseball players have when they finally get called up from the minors and make it to the show. I mean, after working their butts off to reach the majors, the last thing they want is to be sent back down. It also occurred to me that hitting a baseball, well, to them, that's the same as making sales for you. It's absolutely essential, and it's the one skill you absolutely must be good at if you want to have a long career. What's a little confusing to me is what baseball people consider to be good when it comes to hitting. I don't know if you know who Ted Williams is, or was. He passed away a little while ago, but he played baseball for the Red Sox. And he had this quote: "Baseball is the only field of endeavor where a man can succeed 3 times out of 10 and be considered a good performer." Now, when he originally dropped those pearls of wisdom, I doubt he realized how many times it would be quoted and requoted during and after his lifetime. As motivational quotes go, it's a doozy because it seems to look at failure from a positive viewpoint. What most people pull from that quote is that a 100% success rate isn't required to have a good career. Just keep swinging. Well, being the contrarian that I am, what I find interesting is what's left out of that quote. Ted Williams is considered by people who follow baseball to be the best hitter of all time, but he didn't get that title just because of his batting average, because of his hitting. Don't get me wrong, his career batting average was impressive, but it wasn't the greatest in history. That distinction goes to Ty Cobb. What Ted Williams did have was the highest on-base percentage in history. Now, your on-base percentage isn't just about hits. It's a measure how often you get on base. And that's whether you get a hit, the pitcher walks you, or plunks you upside the head with a wild pitch. Your on-base percentage is better than your batting average when it comes to measuring success for one simple reason. If you want to score, you got to get on base. Now, Ted Williams' career batting average was .344, which means he got a hit about 1 out of every 3 times he stepped to the plate. Like I said, that was pretty impressive, but his on-base percentage was just short of .482. So whether he got a hit or not, he got on base, on average, every other time he stepped into the batter's box. Now, clearly he understood that getting hits was important or he wouldn't be top 5 all time, but he also seemed to understand that as important as hits were, getting on base was just as important because it gave him the opportunity to score. Now, I want you to use your website to increase your lead generation on base percentage. Often when I bring on a website, the first thing a new client will ask me is how to get to the first page of Google so they can start making sales. And if you're sticking with this baseball analogy, that's the same as asking me what can they do to improve their batting average. Now, at first blush, the question makes a lot of sense because sales are important. However, if you roll with that specific focus, you're going to end up with a lot of missed opportunities. On a typical day, only about 2 out of every 10 visitors who stop by your website are anywhere near ready to buy something. The rest are doing research. They just want information. So by focusing exclusively on sales, you're ignoring the majority of people who visit your website, which will seriously get in the way of your ability to increase your on-base percentage. I want you to assume that everyone who lands on your website is interested in purchasing services similar to the ones you provide. They'll make a purchase at some point, and it could be next week, it could be several months from now, but assume that they're going to purchase something. Well, that means that everyone who hits your website presents you with an opportunity. Because even if you don't get a hit, as in making a sale, you can still get on base and give yourself the opportunity to score or to make a sale. Now let's talk about the tools you can use to increase your lead generation on base percentage. Well, the method I recommend for giving yourself this opportunity is by working to get visitors onto your email list. And the key lead generation benefit for this approach is that it puts everyone in play. And once they get onto your list, you can reach out to them. The platform I use with all my clients is System.io, primarily because they have a free tier for lists up to 2,000 names. And that comes with all the required bells and whistles as opposed to other services that charge between $45 and $60 a month for the exact same functionality. Which, if you're just getting started, it's a nice bill not to have to pay. Now, how good you are at getting on base will depend to a large part on how you set your website up. Or, if you're a little light in the geekdom department, how your web designers set your website up. Build it right, and your website is going to come at visitors from a few different angles, all of which will be working to give you a chance to up your on-base percentage. Here's a few of those features just to give you a taste of what we're talking about. Lead magnets, multiple sign-up forms, pop-ups, slide-ins, and info bars, website analytics software, even retargeting pixels. Each one of these tools plays a slightly different part in the process, but they all come together to give you as many opportunities as possible to engage with the folks on your website who need what you do. So let's wrap this up. The takeaway is that lead generation is a skill you can learn. There's no way to know exactly what each visitor is looking for when they visit your website. However, if you have a solid understanding of your target audience, you can easily set your website up for whatever they'll be looking for, no matter where they are in the buying process. Some of the folks that visit your website are going to be ready to purchase. Others are there for information. Your goal is to be able to sell to each of these groups when they're ready. By positioning your website as a resource, you increase your lead generation on base percentage, which is how you give yourself the opportunity to make sales or to get hits if you want to stick with the analogy. Now, if you want me to take a quick look at your website and give you a few tips on how to increase your on base percentage, just go to chriscarter.net/appointments and schedule a quick consultation. Put a quick eyeball on your website and see some things that you got, some things that you're missing, and then kind of give you some options on which direction to go from there. Remember, it's like baseball. You can't make sales unless you get on base. That's it for now. I'll talk to you next week.